And I would imagine, you mentioned clean living and that type of a thing as far as lifestyle. I would imagine being in the business you're in, probably a pretty tough thing to do, because by now you should have been in and out of rehab probably about 15 times.
Yeah, I guess that makes me not so interesting. You know what's really amazing about the media now, and I never really figured this out. On our second album, our first album was a massive smash, and on our second album, the tone of the media changed. It's when paparazzi kind of came in vogue. Musical styles changed, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not joking. We had people asking questions like, so where is the strife? Who's in rehab? Nobody wanted to cover us because we had a great record to promote. They wanted to see who was messed up. And the fact is, it is what it is. I was very lucky to stay away from that stuff, and it was just more because I saw, quite frankly, people that I really loved being so damaged by it. Mm-hmm. And it's tough enough, I think, in any business. But there's a lot of I live in Los Angeles, so there's a lot of that stuff around in general, mm-hmm. let alone in the music business. But one thing I've seen is, for the most part, it's still around, but for the most part, it's really cleaned up its act. Nowadays you got to look at it. The music industry's completely changed. It's much more so a do-it-yourself operation than it was even when I had hit records 20 years ago. Major record companies have gone out of business, and what you're seeing is artists take control of their own destinies and of their own lives instead of being subservient to the wishes of the agenda of a huge corporation. And I think that's a really cool thing. Gunnar and I started doing that because we had to. After our first huge hit record, we were on Geffen Records, and their agenda changed, and we found ourselves sitting dormant, unable to release an album for 5 years, and watched our fans dwindle away. And we vowed that we would never do that again, even if we're going to release a record every 1 or 2 years that we financed. And we started our own label called Stone Canyon Records, named after my dad's band. And we've been releasing records ever since. And the nice thing is, people that are fans of ours have an outlet. You've got the internet, all that kind of stuff. But we get out there and we play. And I think that's the thing that's kind of come back to, is it's all about, can they do it live? When you go and see that artist, are they great live? Are they great performers? And Gunnar and I have always had that as our main focus since we were little kids. So when you come and see us play in Spencer, you'll get that. It's something we're very comfortable with, and we're playing songs that we truly, dearly love, that pay tribute to our best friend, our dad. It couldn't be better.
And it's interesting to, as you mentioned, the difference in the music industry, even over the last 20 years. I was talking with someone earlier today about I brought in my Nelson After the Rain cassette tape. And, and I have it right here. And a friend of mine said, you know what, I have to take all my cassette tapes and switch them over to MP3s.
Well, that's true. And for the most part, I know a lot of kids that just don't buy anything. They get it all free on downloads and that type of thing. It's almost like, I've always said this to people, I'm a songwriter, and that's a huge source of income for people that write songs, is selling their music and royalties and things like that. And I really think Pandora's box is open, and I kind of see the writing on the wall. The reality of it is, if I'm fortunate enough to get paid for writing a great song, like say they place it in a movie or TV show or something, well, you can't hide that. But for every legitimate sale now, there are probably 100 downloads. Mm-hmm. And what that does is, I'm actually okay with it. I almost look at it like music is a commercial to get people to come and see you play. It's kind of like it's gone back to what it was in the 40s and 50s, because that's really what it was. There was no money in selling records, really. It was all about, where are they playing, and I'm going to grab my girl and go down and have a great time. And it's kind of come back to that. But see, I look at it differently. We're not moving forward. We're going backwards. It's back to the 50s. And I'm actually pretty cool with it.
We've got to move ahead, I guess, a little bit to 90, of course, when you released After the Rain. Talk a little bit, I guess, about when you first started forming that band in particular and deciding on maybe what your music was kind of going to sound like, I guess.
Well, for us, it was more, we did it the other way. We didn't form a band first. We realized that Nelson was really more about Gunnar and myself. That was the sound. It was the two of us singing. And we had been in a lot of bands. We had formed and broken up a bunch of bands, and we were very frustrated with the fact that we were always dealing with people that had different life agendas and were getting married or going to the army or whatever it was. And so just out of that frustration, the two of us kind of made a decision that before we went any further, we were going to write the best songs that we possibly could, because that was eternal. And so we wrote the songs, and we learned. We've traveled all over the world. We collaborated with people, and we really hit pay dirt with a certain group of writers, and collaborated on what became the After the Rain album. And as we were recording the demonstration records that got us the eventual deal with Geffen and stuff, we actually started meeting people that we would bring in through referral, friends of ours, basically, to play those demos. And that's how we met our keyboard player, Paul, and the drummer, Bobby, and our guitar player, Brett, was a referral from an Australian manager that we knew, and we flew him in from Australia. And more importantly, Nelson was all about great songs with lots of melody and huge vocals. And we had a band, quite frankly, that was way overqualified to play the music that we played. And we kind of needed it. We got to a place where we started showing up for shows and realized that maybe it was because we were legacy artists or because they didn't see the work that went through it. It looked like an overnight success. And, nobody wants to give you respect for that. We kind of we always felt like we were guilty until proven innocent. There was like a backlash. And when they saw our band and when they saw us play live, they got it. It was, wow, this is a real musical thing. It's not just a made-for-TV, let's face it, we had a great run on MTV when they played videos. And this was a real deal music trip first. It was songs first. And here we are years later. And I still say that, even if we're playing a tribute show to our dad or if we're playing one of our shows, for us, the most important thing is songs first, our two vocals second. Everything else can come third. And that's a philosophy that's really worked well for us.
Well, and as you mentioned, the music does, I guess the music is what is eternal, basically. And I know, and I was racking my brain today trying to think. I saw somebody a while back on a TV show, and they performed one of your dad's songs, and I think they did a whole album, maybe a tribute album to him or something like that, but they had a song of his that they did. Have you noticed a lot of other artists that have kind of done some different tributes to your dad's music?
This happened a lot. I think one thing that really excited me recently, Paul McCartney sang Lonesome Town, one of our dad's songs, on Run Devil Run about 5 years ago. And I'm a huge Beatles nut. And Paul McCartney in particular. I had always heard that he was really influenced by him. He was actually going to produce a record on our father the year that he passed away, and it never came to be. So when I hear things like that, it's amazing. But recently, and I think it just came out, 2 weeks ago, John Fogerty, who actually inducted our dad in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, cut our dad's hit Garden Party. And I believe Don Henley is singing with him on that from the Eagles. So if you can imagine these luminaries, guys like Fogerty and Henley cutting one of my dad's tunes, I think that's the ultimate tribute.